It's display all handles, update account, time scene, and location scene for and animal. And that's all video, which is not video option.
Gem install Rails. Oops, gem install Rails. That's the first thing we need to do here.
This we do on
Anywhere.
I'm gonna open the account because I'm not messing with that.
I'm going to go into my project directory. I'm actually going to make a directory here called class. Actually, I'm going to start this in our Ruby notes so that it's easier for me to. Sorry, Ruby notes.
Let's see, my Rails is 5.2.1.
Perfect. So. Oops, okay. Sometimes I forget. The default database that Rails uses, if you don't specify something, is SQLite. No sense wasting our time with SQLite. So I'm going to make sure here that when we run this, we do -db PostgreSQL. Don't have to. If you just want to watch,
You just need to install.
it's not that. It's this. That. No. That. There we go. Okay. So ignore everything I just did up until now. Here we go. So yes, Rails has a lot of dependency gems, so it's installing all of those. Why is it still?
So all I did is you haven't installed Rails.
It's not on this -db. Is it not? Is it just -d? Oops, I think I made a boo. Boo boo. -d. Whoops. That's what I was messing up on. I normally write out --database. I guess you could do that. --database equals there.
And that's what we would do.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna cd into there. Open this up in Atom and let's take a look at what we got. Whole bunch of folders, right? App folder with a models folder in it should look a little familiar, right? Yeah. There's our active record. The bin folder. Remember we made a little bin console app or bin, but these are the commands that Rails has in it. The config folder, right? All we had was our database.yaml before, but Rails comes with a whole bunch more stuff. DB, we talked about the seeds file.
I don't think so.
I put a couple example things in there to generate some games up, but there's also the migrations will go in here, and the schema file will be in here once we actually run it. And then there's some other stuff. Tests for doing test-driven development. And here's the gem file, right? So lots of stuff in here by default. A lot of stuff commented out. For the most part, we're good to go, right?
It has SAS.
It's got SAS right in it. This is batteries included. Rails has everything you need to get started. My personal opinion is it's all too much. I think that there's a lot of stuff in here that is not necessary, that I would rather opt in for. Gavin's response is, well, you can opt out of it all. Like you can generate a new Rails app and disable a lot of stuff. But
so it makes it kind of a heavy website.
doesn't make a heavy website. It's just that all of this configured, there's a lot of stuff here for you to start working with. I would prefer a more minimal approach, but that's my personal preference. Most people love this. So, but it's what it is. It's good. So how do we start our server? So we're gonna use the Rails command, and we can just say Rails server, right? And boom, there it is. It's running on port 3000. If we go to port 3000, I actually need to bookmark this there, call it 3000. Okay, so I got a link there. There it is. Board game library development does not exist, right? No database. So let's take a look away. So in my config, database.yaml, it generated this. This is a default section, and then in development mode, it uses all those default settings plus the database. When we deploy in production, it'll use these settings for production, right? We probably need to change these to match our production setting situation. But board game library development is what the database is going to be called in development. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, I forget, it's Rails now. It used to always be Rake. At some point, Rails 4, they changed it, moving away from Rake to using the Rails command.
So Rake is more of a Ruby thing.
Rake is very much a Ruby thing. Rake is still used in Rails applications. In fact, if I ran Rake DB migrate, it would work. Let's see what happens. It might give me a warning. Not DB migrate, DB create. It worked. Yeah, it worked fine. It's because I can't run migration until the database exists. So I'll run this, and now it's been created.
Well, so you can use either one.
Yeah, and if I run my migrations, there's no migrations to run. Did you see the schema pop up here? So there's my empty schema. This is just like we had in our other, when we were dealing with just the ORM.
There's some, maybe I just proposed this. What is exactly migration? What is
Migrations are incremental changes to the database. So every time we make a change to the database schema, we add a new migration that describes that change. And then if we want to make another change in the future, we add another migration that makes that change.
That's changed my file. I had 10 animals in my file.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to migrate that.
That's not a migration. That's data in your database. I'm talking about changes to the schema, the shape of your database.
Myself,
Yeah, the shape of your database.
Makes sense.
So now, so running Rake works fine, but the preferred way to do it now is to say Rails, DB migrate, etc. So if I say Rails server, and a lot of these are, you can abbreviate with a single character. So Rails S is the equivalent to Rails server. Oh, it's already running because I had it here in this tab. So if we go back and we reload, cool. This is, I haven't configured anything else in my Rails app, so I get this, yeah, you're on Rails. Whoop-de-doo, right? So what do we do now? That was a link to the Rails website. So while it's running here, this is nice. We actually have this log over here that shows us everything that happened. So it said, started a GET request for slash, right? So that's just no path here. This is the IP address the request came from, localhost, and this is the time. Processed by Rails welcome controller index as HTML, and then these are the views that it was running. This Rails welcome controller is built into Rails until you specify something else for the group. It'll serve this in development mode. If you tried to actually put this into production, you just get an error because it doesn't exist. It only serves this in development mode. So what we want to do is put something else on this home page. Let's just say hello world, right? So the routes is where you describe, just like in React router, you match what's in the URL to what should get rendered, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to run Rails G for generate, or we can type out generate, either way. Controller, we're going to make a home controller. Okay.
You don't have to do /home.
No, this is the name of the controller. So we're going to call this the home controller. So here it is. We have a home controller. It generated a whole bunch of stuff for us. This is the most important thing that it generated. Is this right here? Home controllers. There it is. Empty home controller.
So it created that for you.
Yeah. It also created a empty helper for the home controller. It created, and this is, I also get a little annoyed by this because I don't need this 90% of the time. I go back and I delete all this shit. Eventually, you'll just go make the home controller file yourself, so you don't have to go back and delete everything. But the generator is nice because you can just ignore the stuff you don't need, and it makes sure that the thing that it generates, it gets it right. So, so I have SCSS files for like anything that I want to use, SAS files. By default, it uses CoffeeScript instead of JavaScript. That's a controversial thing. You can opt out of it so that it just uses JavaScript. And there's nothing to stop you from just using .js instead when you're making the JavaScript files.
Well, what is CoffeeScript?
It's just like SAS is like an enhanced version of CSS. CoffeeScript is an enhanced version of JavaScript. The syntax is different. No curly braces, you know, so you just indentation. That's what it is. It can be confusing because you really need to know JavaScript well to like benefit from the terser syntax, because like it's a terser syntax. If you don't know what, because all it does, it just gets translated back to JavaScript. Right? Yeah. So we'll talk about more about these assets and the asset pipeline later. Let's focus kind of on this. So if we go into the routes now, what we want to do is we want to specify a route for the root, the thing, and we want to point it at the home controller. So we're going to say root, I think it's 2, and then we say home, and then the index action for the home controller. Can I just say home? Let's see what happens if I do this. Let's see. Going to get an error. Missing controller key. Yeah, so it needs to be cool. The action index could not be found on the home controller. So the actions on the controller are just a method. I'm just going to say def index, right? Here, I'm just going to say render pay. Oh, render text pay. No, render. Yeah, text is not one of these, raw. All right. No? I thought there was a way to just render text from here, but I guess there's not. What it's telling me here is that there's no view. There's no template for it to render. So I'm going to leave this empty. Let's see what we saw here was that it's missing a template. So if we go in views, the generator made the home directory for me, but it didn't put anything in there. So I'm going to make a new file here called index.html.erb. Index.erb.html.erb. And in here, I'm just going to write a paragraph and say hello. Hello. There it is, right? So how did all this happen? How did we get magic? Yeah. So index here, I could have called this foo, and then call this foo, and then call this foo. Same result, right? The reason that we use index is because for the slash action, like of a path, like the default thing, we typically call it the index, like index.html, etc. So typically you would call the kind of main action and a controller index. But that's just a convention. You don't have to go with it. Okay, showed when I renamed everything to foo. So let's say foo. And then in the route too, yeah. So here's our, oops, what did I change it?
Giving in the food, you know.
I didn't rename this. There it is. Okay, so there's a couple things going on here. There's this layout here. See this title up here, board game library? This is the layout HTML file. There's a couple tags here, style sheet tag, JavaScript tag. So Rails goes into these folders. This is the asset, it's what Rails calls the asset pipeline. Anything in these assets, anything in style sheets and anything in JavaScripts. See this application and application, application.css. It's empty, but it says require tree dot and then require self. What means is this file, the required tree means any CSS files that you put in this directory will automatically get bundled up into that application.css. So for here in home.css, if I put body background color red, there it is, right? This file gets automatically included. I just put CSS files in there. They're going to get loaded. Rails is going to load them.
You see it gets automatically included, but it doesn't show me. Like here and that.
Here?
Yeah. You think about the application.css is automatically included.
Yes.
But it doesn't change.
It doesn't generate it.
No. Like this style sheet link tag loads this CSS file. When Rails serves up this CSS file, it goes and it follows these little directives here. And it goes to require tree means go get all the other files, insert them here, and then insert yourself at the end.
So in the SAS, you can either use the SAS or with the variables or just regular plain CSS.
Yeah.
It doesn't do like a generate.
I don't have to generate the files. Rails is going to do that for me. Rails is going to generate the CSS for me. Yeah.
Because I saw that out on the web.
Yes.
I did this SAS. So it's
Yeah.
a little different here.
If you're doing SAS by itself without anything else, then you need to use something to convert your SAS files into CSS files.
Yeah.
The Rails asset pipeline does that for you.
Does that for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's the difference.
Same thing here. If I write some JavaScript in here, it's going to run, right? It's going to get loaded. So actually, I'm going to delete this coffee file. I don't want it. I don't need it. I'm going to keep this file, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it to just do general layout stuff. I don't want my background color to be red, though. So we'll come back to that there. So that's what those two tags are in the layout. These are security related. They help solve some common web development security problems. For the most part, for now, just ignore them. Just leave them be. Just ignore them. Because Rails comes with some security stuff out of the box, and it uses those. It puts some stuff in there. This is the important part, though, here, the yield. So this template, when it renders, it can have children. So this is just like in React when you do like this.props.children to render the children of a component. I don't know if you've done that in React where you nest components inside other components. This is exactly that. It's just called yield here. So this component, this template will yield to another template. So what happens is when the controller renders, the controller is going to render the layout. Then it's going to yield the action that we're on. So the route said, this little syntax here says the home controller and the index action. We're mapping the root URL to the home controller and the index action. So it goes to the home controller, calls the index method. The index method does nothing, but the default thing that Rails does, so I just have to define it, right? the default thing that Rails does after you have the method, because I could write some code in here, like at foo is bar, right? And then Rails, because I didn't say it to do anything else, the default thing that's going to do is look in the views, find the directory and action name that match this controller index, and it's going to render this template, right? So now in this template, and this is the, I had, what is the thing key? Let me see if I can get it. It's going to drive me crazy. Where's the dang snippet for the, there's a, I don't know, there's a snippet that I'm not, anyway, it looks like this. So I write this special tag that looks like that, and inside of it, I can write some, well, this is the tag. In here, I can write some Ruby code, right? Like 4+4, and it's gonna run, no problems, right? But if I want to take what this Ruby code is evaluated to and then print it in my HTML, I just use this little equal sign right here, and then look, there's 8, right? So you can put any Ruby code you want in here, really. You shouldn't put anything you want, but you can. There's certain things you should. So what about that variable that I named in my controller, at foo? There it is, bar, in my template. So at foo equals bar. Now, why didn't I just call this foo, right? That's a local variable. It's only available inside this method. When you give it an at name, that's an instance variable that's available to that whole instance of the controller. So if I just said that and then called this foo, foo wouldn't be available. I'm going to get an error. Foo is not available in my view. But the instance variable, the scope is different and it's available to my view. So that's just getting used to that.
Like in React, whenever you write any sort of HTML on React, they probably do CSS.
Yeah.
What about Ruby? That actual HTML in that?
It is actual HTML. It's not JSX. It's HTML, but because the file extension has a .erb, it runs it through the ERB processor first, which the ERB processor is going to look for those little tags with the percents. It's going to run any Ruby code that's in them, and then give you back the result. So this is our board game library. What we need then is the board games, right? Let's take a look at that schema that we had started creating in yesterday's app. I'm going to show you kind of a quicker way to build everything up. I just want to make sure we use the same schema. So we had a game and a designer, and our migrations looked like this. So we had name, description, and that thing. Oh yeah, but we changed things a little bit. Let's just look at the schema here. So let's create designers first, and then we can create games at the same time. So let's say Rails G. Let's dive right into scaffolds. So Rails G, this is just short for generate, right? So you'll see me typing the single letter versions a lot. So I'm going to Rails generate a scaffold. The scaffold is going to be for designers. So if I just did this, I would get a scaffold generator for a designer, but it wouldn't have any attributes. What's cool is on the command line here, I can specify the attributes that I want. Those are name, and that's going to be a string, company, is going to be a string, and the URL is going to be a string. And maybe let's have a photo of them too. We're not going to do photo uploads in this version, but maybe like a photo URL, right? So that we can put a photo. And that's a string. So there we go. Got a whole bunch of stuff that got generated. Well, I'm going to ignore all the code that got generated. I'm just going to show you all what functionality got added by me just running that one command. So I'm going to go here to /designers, plural. Notice before here I did the capitalized version of the class, designer, singular. Oh, pending migration. Migrations are pending, right? So Rails DB migrate. It's telling me to Rails DB migrate. There we go. Let's reload. Oops, designers. Ah, cool. That looks cool, right? Oh, cool. So what were some of those designers? We had Eric M. Lang. He worked for CMON. There's his Twitter. Oh, look. Oh, that's so convenient. Copy image address. Cool. There's
That was Rails right there?
what?
Rails created all that?
Yeah.
So Rails created that database right there.
Rails.
Or the input.
Yeah. Forms, the fields, everything.
Okay.
So check this out. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to show you everything else in a second. But first thing I'm going to show you here is, let's close this here for a moment. Designer validates name, presence, true. I think these other fields could be blank, but I think we at least always need to have the name of the designer. Right? So, did I copy? I sure did. For yesterday. Stonemare Games. I don't have those things for them, so we'll leave them blank. Cool. Let's say I want to make a new designer though, and I'm not going to specify a name. Wow. So I got that for free just by adding that line of code there. Right? Now, it's not totally magic. In fact, all the code that generated these views is in my application now. When I ran that scaffold, it generated all those files I said that were there. They're in here, and we can go change them to make this look different now. So let's go take a look here in designers. Here's the HTML views for each of these pages. So for this index, like that doesn't make any sense, right? You're showing that URL, that's a link to a picture. Let's see the picture there instead. So let's go take a look in the index. So there's those ERB tags I was talking about. At designers, that's an instance variable in the controller set. There's all those things. Oh, look, here's the URL. It's just printed here. Let's take that and put an image tag with the source attribute, open quote, then the tag, end quote, and then the end of our image tag, right? Huge. Let's make it a little smaller, right? So we'll just set a height on it, like 200, just to make it. Won't have a little too big. How about 100? Cool. There's our picture of Eric Lang. We could probably change the order of these columns around a little bit, right? Put the photo at the beginning, and let's just take out that from the header there. But we need to move that. Cool. Maybe the URL. Maybe we could just make their maybe put an icon there or something and make that a clickable link. But at the very least, let's make the URL clickable, right? So we're going to make an anchor tag. paste that in there, and then inside the anchor tag, the URL again. So now we have got a clickable URL to take you to that person's thing. Apparently. He's a cool guy. I met him in July. Got his autograph. He borrowed one of his games that he designed. He borrowed my copy of it and used it for a demo for a bunch of people, and then signed it for me afterwards.
That's cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's get. Find out. Okay. There we go. There's a nice picture of Jamie Stegmeyer. Copy image address. So get back over here. Save that.
It's kind of cool. You just go right there and then it's
So serious.
edit, you do everything
Yeah.
right there on your on it.
Yeah.
That's a big improvement.
Yeah. So when I'm showing them, so like let's say I click on Jamie, right? So this page, let's fix that URL there too, right? Or let's go back to Eric's page. So let's make these linkable.
I'm going to show you.
That's this page right here. This is it.
So let me ask you, like, say a company needs a lot of input on database, and they could just set something up like this, and then just hire somebody that doesn't have to know anything about database and just be an entry.
Yep. In fact, I don't need these labels, right? So we could change this here to be an H2. Could be with H3 underneath the company name, and then let's make this a clickable URL again, right? Cool. Right? Are already looking a little better. Let's go to our layout here and make a header tag and a footer tag. I like to always add this here in the footer. The hearts? No, that's actually an HTML thing.
Really?
Yeah.
I think we had to look for a way to put the emojis.
But I went and grabbed emojis.
Yeah, so you can use emojis instead. In fact,
I think
let's do that.
Option spacebar.
What?
Something like that. There's a way to pull it.
Yeah, there's a
You have a Mac, or you can pull a list of emojis.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Some spacebar control.
I'm gonna look that up.
So control command spacebar.
Control command spacebar. Cool.
Yeah.
There we go. So there's our heading and our footer. It's on every page, right? So what about the home page, right? Just hello world bar. Let's maybe add some navigation, designers and games. And what we can have the home page do is just redirect to, let's put a welcome. Let's just put a welcome page on that picture for now. So here we'll just say, welcome to our library. Spice it up later. Paragraph here. And then let's put a couple navigation links in the layout. Maybe up here in the header, there's a nav, ordered list. this is a, and so I wish I had the damn Rail snippets. What's the ERB render block? Yeah, no. Something's conflicting with that. What am I looking for? No. It's that, let's say, link to designers. Designers, can't spell. Oh, got that backwards. Text, and then thing. We also want link to games, right? Which we don't have yet. When we load this, and we're like, I don't know what the games path is. Like Rails is really smart. It's actually expanding this to something called games path, right? Which is a route that doesn't exist. So let's make another scaffold. Rails G scaffold game. And what are the attributes that a game had in our other old app here? Move this over so I can look at them. And a name. If you don't put colon text, it just assumes string. Or if you don't put colon string, it just assumes it. Min players. It's an integer. Max players. It's an integer. Min duration was an integer. Max duration, an integer. Let's just call it min age. Well, actually, we have the other table. I'm going to input everything again anyway. I like min age better, I think. That's an integer. And then one more thing is the designer, right? So what we're going to do here is say designer and then call on references for the type.
What is references?
References is going to make a foreign key. So here we are. Let's take a look at the migration that got made. So db migrate here. References designer foreign key true. So it added that. So game to reference a designer. So let's go ahead and run Rails db migrate.
Because you added that key.
Yeah.
You have to migrate.
Yep. But because I ran the scaffold and I added new migration, I need to run it just to change the database. So here's our games view. New game. So how about Blood Rage? Blood. Oh yeah, Blood Rage. Okay, I'm gonna. That's outgroups. Oh, cool. There's all of them. Well, shit. Oh, let me show you the seeds. How the seeds work. Good. This will be easier. So seeds. This file, if you write some Ruby code in it that creates some things, it will automatically. So we just change age recommendation to min age. These other things should work the same. Those are the same fields, right? So if I rake db seed, those things should have run. And if I go back over here, I close my tab to it, must have. We're here to games. Did it not save this file? PCs? PC? Why did it not? Try bang, see what happens. Should get an error if it doesn't work. Oh, designer must exist. So did I? Fine. So it's not letting me have a null designer. Why? Allow null. Can I do allow null Rails? Allow null foreign key. Rails 5. This is okay. This is a change. That's why I didn't expect that. So go to game. Because I put that references in the thing, I got belongs to added it for me already. So didn't blow up that time. So let's take a look. Cool. There's everybody. Their designers are blank though, right? So let's go set the designers. So that's awkward, right? A text field for designer. That's not what I want. What would be nice though is if I had a drop down where I could pick the designer's names. So let's go change this view. It's games. So if we were to go to the edit view, oh, it's just render form. See this render underscore form? That's a form partial. So this is the form. This is the same form both used for creating and editing them. It renders the same form partial. So for the designer, it just has this as a text field. What I really want is a select field, right? With drop downs. If I run this, I should get an error. It said select field, not select field. Maybe it's just called select. Select tag. Let's turn to the API. API.rubyonrails.org. Oops. API.rubyonrails.org. The website. So Rails 5.2.1. That's what we're on, right? Let's search for methods. Select. Select. Select tag. This actually, I know this actually isn't the one I want. Let's look in number field. Form tag, helper, number field, password. Here we go. This is the list of all of them here. So these are all the form helpers. So these are all the different types of fields we can use. We want, oh, they got rid of select field, search field. Well, that's new. What is that all about? Oh, that's not what I think it is. Okay. No, can I remember this? Must be in a different class. Rails select field. Oh, here's the Rails guide. Perfect. Dealing with forms. Select. Making select boxes. Oh, select tag. Then options for select. It is select. That was like the first thing I tried, wasn't it? Select designer. But you have to specify the options. What we need is an array of like designers' names and their IDs. That's what it's asking for, right? So what I can do here is I can just say designer.all, and then yep, map them, and then so what I get here is each designer. What I'm going to return is the designers. Oops. Designers. Is ID first or name first? Name first. Designer.name. Designer.id. There we go. We also wanna have a blank option still. Include blank. Options. So there, and then I think I say include blank true. There's our blank option. So I can leave it blank for a game, but so Eric Lang designed that, and then, oops, did that work? No, it did not. Designer, maybe this needs to be designer ID still. There he is. So that's a sucky representation of that, right? We should fix that. We can't. Let's go fill in the designer for the other ones first. The Rising Sun was also Eric. Viticulture and Charterstone were both designed by Stegmeyer. Cool. So let's put their names here and have it link to their designer profile over on the other screen. So this is the index here. Designers. It's just dumping the designer object there, right? What we really want is their name. Cool. Okay. So, and then what we want to do here is link. So this is another helper here. So I should leave that there. Link to the text that we want for the link, and then the thing that we're going to link to is the game designer, right? So if we just put a reference to that object there, Rails is going to figure out what the route is for that automatically. I don't have to say /designer/ID. I'm just going to say, look, there's designer/1. You see down in the status bar, designer/2. The links right to them. Just by referencing that object. The link to helper is smart enough to figure out, oh, that's a designer. You must want to link to the designer's controller show action for the one with this ID. Like, it's smart enough to figure that out.
When you're saying controller, you're talking about each file on the left.
The controller are these two files here. Designers. These got generated when we did the scaffold. I actually haven't shown them.
The controller something.
Yeah. So the home controller I showed you, that's just this one, right? I haven't shown you yet the other two. I'm going to show you those in a moment. Let's also do this page. Let's do that same thing.
All the stuff in that app, application, so all the stuff, they're all components. What do you call those files?
Well, in React, they're not all components, just most of the ones you're working with are components. These are all different kinds of things. These are files, but there's different types of files. There's views, there's models, there's controllers, there's all kinds of stuff. So Oh. There we go. So let's put another game in that doesn't have a designer, right? Root. Root. I'll get that description there. Minimum players of Root was, I think, 2. The max players is 4. Let's just say it was 60 to 90 minutes, and the age was 12. I'm going to leave the designer blank, right? Uh-oh. So it's saying undefined method name for nil, right? So there's .name. That's because the designer is nil, right? So we can't do this right here if there's no, we can't link to a designer that's not there, right? So what we can do is use those ERB tags and say if, and then end, right? If true, foo, right? We'll put foo there. So there's foo, and if this is false, nothing, right? So the condition is if the game has a designer, right? So if there is a designer, we'll do that. So it works, no problem, right? Let's go back. Oh, boom. We have that same problem on the index view, right? So just go to our index view here. Now, it would look kind of gnarly if I wrote out all that stuff, right? With if and the blocks. So what's pretty cool is in Ruby, if it's on one line, you can add the if statement to the end of the line. So I can just say here, if game.designer. And it won't evaluate this unless this part is true. Cool, no problem. There it is. Just nothing there.
Go back to it. You said you put it at the end of the line.
Yeah.
But if game.designer.
Yeah, so read that like a sentence. Link to game designer name, game designer, if game designer. So it won't link to the game designer and if there's no game designer. So say I put in a game. I made a mistake, right? Over here, hit destroy. Are you sure? Cool. Game was destroyed. It's gone. You see that little message that was there in green?
Yeah.
Before I refreshed it. Let's take a look at the controller. This is where all this edit, update, delete stuff is actually happening, is in the controller. So the views are how the stuff gets presented to the user, right? The actual work is being done in the controller. So let's look at the designer's controller first. So this is it. Here's the index action, and we set @designers to designer.all. So in the index action for designer, it has @designers. It does the .each, and it renders a table row for each one. Pretty simple. So let me close all these tabs here. So that's what happens when you go to, well, this path right here, /designers, right? What about designer/1? If I do a get there, it goes to the show action. The show action is empty here, right? Well, let's look at the show. Let me split this to another view. I need 2 files open, I think. Yeah. Do something there. That's the game designer's controller. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna keep that open there. Shit. Okay. Show. There we go. Okay. Let's put this open below here. Okay. And then so we did index, new, show, edit. Those are the ones we're gonna look at. Okay. So we talked about index, right? At designers is designers.all. There's at designers. Show. Let's look at the show file. Okay. At designer is set here. Like at designer, designer.name, designer.company. There's the other stuff that we added before, or we edited. So it keeps talking about at designer, but we never set at designer here, right? Where did that come from? Go back up to the top here. Before action, remember these methods are the actions. Set designer, only show, edit, update, destroy. So if we scroll down here to the bottom, there's a section called private. We'll talk about public private later, but it's marked private. And there's this method here, set designer. So that's what this says, set designer. So it says call this method before the action, call this method, but only for show, edit, update, and destroy. Show, edit, update, and destroy all happen to be the actions where you're finding a designer by ID. So instead of writing this line of code here in every single one of those actions, we just make sure that this automatically gets called before the action. It sets that variable. So the show action doesn't have anything else to do, right? It's just, you're just showing me. So I'll show you. Here, now render the show template. So what about for making a new designer? Well, the designer is going to be a new instance. So just like we were typing in the console, designer.new. When we render the new form, it says render the form action, and then it says this attribute designer is this instance variable here. So when we look at the form, this is the form. It's going to render all of this. And you see this form.submit, because it's a form with, and the model is the designer object or whatever that we passed in. It's going to change this. So if I say new game, create, see how the button says create? Or if I do an edit, it's going to say update instead of create. It knows that because the instance that was passed into the form for the new was a brand new unsaved designer that didn't have an ID yet. The code that renders that form is built into Rails for that form with right here is smart enough to label that submit button correctly, which is pretty cool, right? So that's what we get by saying that. The edit, well, that just loads the saved one and renders the edit form. Nothing needs to happen on that action. But in that form, when you submit the form, if you submit the form from a new designer that hasn't been saved yet, it's going to do a post to the create action. If you do a post to the create action, this is what the code's going to run. It's going to take the parameters. This is all of the stuff that was in the form, all the things you typed into the form. It's going to get those form parameters, and it's going to save them. And that's basically going to come in as a hash, right? In fact, we can go look at these logs. This has been running the whole time I've been navigating around in the app. Let's see. Here we go. We did a post to /games. Here's the parameters that came in. There's the params, the game right there. These were the params that we sent in. That's what I typed into the form, right there. So that hash right there, this designer params, what it does is it goes, designer params, it goes into the designer field here. So if let's scroll back to where I added the designer earlier on. Here we go, designer. It says, hey, we need to require the designer field, and I'm going to allow you to use the fields name, company, URL, and URL photo. Because what if you had a field for like is admin, right? And somebody logged, they were a user, and they were like changing their name. But on the form, when they submitted it, they added a field in Chrome, is admin true, for like a checkbox, and then saved that. And your app was like, cool, I'll just take all the attributes you gave me and save them into the database. Is admin was one of those. You shouldn't allow that, right? So this is a whitelist for what fields the user's allowed to use the form to edit. This is a security thing. So never trust parameters from the internet, only allow the whitelist through. So you're saying, I'm only gonna allow these fields to be edited.
And that's part of the package that you found with Rails. You didn't write that.
No, this wasn't what I downloaded with Rails. This is when I ran the scaffold generator. Yeah.
Well, it brought that in.
It brought that in. Yeah.
I can't remember, like, what?
I didn't type this. This came, all of this I'm showing you came with the scaffold. I just ran that Rails G scaffold. So this is saying, hey, permit these fields to come through. This ends up biting you once in a while. You'll like add a new field, but your scaffold was already generated. And then you'll go back and like be like, oh, why can't I save that new field? Oh, it's got to go add it to this list. Because this includes just the ones that were there at the time I generated it. So when we post to create, it says designer new, and then it says ignore this respond to format block. I just say if designer.save, and then here for HTML, it says redirect to @designer, and then notice designer was successfully created. That notice bit, that's this. Let's add in a new designer. How about, oh yeah, our buddy Uwe. Yes, he was the group designer. Yeah, Cole, yeah. I don't know I don't know any of that other stuff about it. Yeah. So, oh shoot, you didn't see it, but we'll see it here when I do this. So I'm gonna edit root, I'm gonna pick Cole, update him. See that right there? Game was successfully updated. That came from update, notice, designer was successfully updated. That little notice, when you do a redirect and then you redirect to something and you say the notice there, or in the here's the destroy. I know you can do it when you do a render too. I guess there's just no examples here. Anyway, when you set this notice, Rails has this feature that uses cookies basically, so that it sets that thing in a cookie, and then when you go around to the other view, if in your view, and I'll show you here, it's in the here it is. It's basically in the top of not every single view, but the ones. See that notice little variable there? That's basically it's going to render that text, and then the first time it renders it, it clears it out, so it won't render it again when the pages load again. It's a neat little feature that Rails has. Sometimes, depending on how you design your app, it's not that useful. So that's the create action. The update action works the same way, except instead of saving a new designer, it finds the existing one and does an update. If you do a delete request, it destroys it and then says it was destroyed and redirects you back to the designer's path. And then that's it. That's the scaffold. So we have create, read, update, destroy, which is with all the CRUD actions, and generates those all for free. A lot of times, this is 90% of what you need to be productive with getting some stuff into a database. Now, the views and the way those things are presented to the end user, you might go change all that around. But the controllers for actually matching stuff in the database and your models up to things are all, you get them really cheap with Rails. That's really cool. So the last thing that I want to do here before we're done is on the designer's page, or on a designer's page, let's make it so if you click on their picture or their name, it takes you to the show page for them, right? Designers. So let's do this. Let's do this for the game too. So link to game name, and we're just going to link to the game. Now for the designers, link to designer name, the designer. Now, how do we do the link to with the image tag, right? Because here I just put, this is all in Ruby, right? So if I recall correctly, link to takes a block. If I can say link to, and then I'll say designer do, and then I need an end. And then in here I can put the thing that's going to go inside the link. If that works. Sure did. There it is. Okay. So what I want to do is on his page, I want to list his games. Show H3 games H2. Put games by, and then I'll put his name. Games by Eric. And we'll just make an unordered list item. We want to, so now we will really wish my snippets were working. Designer.games.each do, oops, game, and that, and then we do need our, we'll need our end tag there. And then in here, I can make a list item for each game. I can just say game.name. Oops, womp womp. Undefined method games for designer, right? That's an interesting thing. So a game belongs to a designer. And when that line got added, remember when we ran that migration to create the games? But what it didn't do was go modify the designer. The designer doesn't know that it has games yet on the model. It's just the other way around. So what we can say is a designer has many games. This sets up the other direction of the relationship. So there they are. Oh, and you know what? I was not supposed to do the equals there for the each. That's what this is. It's printing out that array. So now let's also make this a link to the game. Now I can link to that game. I can go back to the designer. I can see all the designers. I can see all the games. We could make this view certainly a whole lot better, I think. Like this. Let's actually do that real fast. So the games controller in the index, we have min players, max players. I think what we really just need is one column for players, right? And one column for duration. And then here we'll say ages. So here, take this. Oh, I'm doing the wrong numbers there.
What is it monitoring?
It's not doing anything. That's just text. Yeah. Now, if I tried to put the minus in here, I could actually be doing some math, but it's not Ruby code. It's just text. There it is, right? 14 plus, yeah. So looking pretty good, I think. 2 to 5 players, 2 to 6, blah, 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 blah. That looks good. Oh, man, 90 to 90 minutes? Shouldn't it just say 90, don't you think? So we could do something here. for the duration here, we could say if, oops, yeah, it's the, well, I'm going to do an if else. So I'm going to say if game.min duration equal to game.max. So if they're the same, I'm just going to put one of them. Doesn't even matter which one, right? Just going to put the min duration. Then else, I'm going to copy that. And then I print them both. Oh, this one just says 90 minutes now. Right? I can do the same thing for player count because there might be a game that is 2 players only. Magic the Gathering, 2 players, right? In fact, why not? Magic the Gathering. I think it's too complicated for anyone to learn who didn't start playing in middle school. 2 to 2, I don't know, let's say 45 to 60 minutes, I'm guessing, and let's put this at 12. We'll leave the designer blank because we don't have the designer there. But so if we go back to our index, 2 to 2, so let's just go ahead and copy the same logic here. And put it here. And I'll do some. There's 2.
Oh, we here. Good. Thanks.
You know what we need to do? We need to add a new designer, Richard Garfield. Games, go back, edit Magic. Garfield. Cool. So that's there we go. That's Rails. We got some associations between some models, and we built all that in like an hour and a half. Yeah.
So simple I could do it.
Actually, I do like the logic.
Yeah, I do like it.
It seems
Friendly.
It is. It's very friendly.
so.
It's really easy to get started with. That's what's powerful.
The whole thing with React, that makes it so cool. It's because it's single page.
Yeah.
Seems like that was kind of like a single page as well if you wanted to.
Yeah, so with this, it's not single page. I mean, I guess you could build Rails out of just one page. What Rails is really good at is, so you've got all these controllers, you've got these models, and you've got all these views, and it composes those views together into the HTML and sends it down.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need any CSS and JavaScript, it bundles it all as there. I don't use the views and the CSS and JavaScript in my Rails apps. So I don't know if you noticed, in the controller, there was this stuff here about JSON. And down in here, there's this like, if it's HTML, do this. If it's JSON, do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we look in here, look at these JBuilders. See this JBuilder? This is showing you what attributes to turn into JSON. It's basically like some Ruby code that's like, hey, extract from the designer these attributes and turn them into JSON. So if we just go up here and we just say games.json, oh shit, I've got a JSON API. In fact, let me pop this up in Firefox because Firefox will format it better. There we go.
Oh wow, Firefox.
Yeah. So yeah, so you can switch back to the raw view, which is what Chrome was showing me, but Firefox will, it's like, oh, this is JSON. I know what to do with that. Yeah. So this is basically an array of everything. So if I ask for games/1.json, I'll get back just, I think, what was it Blood Rage, the first one we put in, right?
Oh,
Yeah. So that's cool. And also you can do the posts and the updates and the deletes. You can do all those via JSON. And instead of rendering the back thing, it'll just be like, we'll send you back like status okay when you do a delete, right? Because you don't need to get redirected back to the index when it's JSON. You just need to know, did that thing get deleted, right? So out of the box here already, I could just build a separate React front end that just talked to JSON to these same controllers, and I wouldn't worry about the views and stuff. And that's what I do. And in fact, when I write my controllers, I don't even render I don't have all the HTML stuff. I literally just say render JSON in my controllers. That's how I build Rails apps now.
Do you use React View?
I use React on the front end, and I just write fetch requests to send JSON posts to the Rails app.
Oh, okay.
It ends up being a little bit more work, actually, but I like working in React more for the front end. So I choose it. But you don't have to use React in the front end and Rails app. The Rails app will give you the full stack if you want, and you use those views and CSS and the JavaScripts. You use the asset pipeline and all of that. Rails will give you everything you need to build a website.
I'm sure there's people that put templates out there for front end stuff.
In fact, tomorrow I'm going to show you all how to use a CSS library to get some even nicer looking pages out of the box.
Okay.
I'm going to show you one called Bulma, and we're going to take this and we're going to make it look real nice. So let's stop the streaming. Whoosh. Goodbye, YouTube.